We'll just get her to come up. And I just wanted to let you both know that our meetings are recorded and make sure that you're both aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
So we have the Pincher Creek Community Early Learning Center delegation will present to the Board of Trustees regarding the continued need and value that the Livingston Range School Division representative brings to their table. So with that, we'll just turn it over to the two of you.
Awesome.
To go ahead with your presentation.
Am I talking right now? Okay. So hello, and hi Dawn, my colleague on the screen. My name's Ola Crook, and I serve as the secretary for the Pincher Creek Community Early Learning Center. The reason for our delegation here today is back in September, we received a letter from your Board of Trustees kind of letting us know that you'd like to move your position on our board to a more advisory role. And I guess I'm here to respectfully ask you to reconsider because we see so much value in having a trustee from both school boards be a part of our board and to be there as a voting member has been a real help, and it kind of helps bolster our organization as well. There are several reasons for that. We've really enjoyed the exchange of ideas. We've really enjoyed, Lacey's been a part, and we've really enjoyed her kind of perspective on things and coming from a school board point of view. The reason for that is because our community early learning centers function very tightly with a good collaborative spirit, but also a really tight relationship between both schools. We share our students. So we've got a lot of students coming with after school care from us. So it is, I think, in the best interest for both of our boards to kind of be able to exchange different policy requirements or things, especially during this pandemic time. It's been really helpful to kind of know where the schools are moving so that we can then align our early learning centers to maybe follow suit, because if we are having that student exchange from one facility to another, we see that as kind of a vital information. Sharing of resources, of course, sharing of knowledge has always been really important. And I guess another piece is we just want to keep a close working relationship with you. We feel that although an advisory role is still of great importance, a voting member really does help bolster certain decisions and just kind of act to, I guess, add some color to our organization as well and keep a conversation going. So I don't know, Dawn, that's kind of all I had on my end. Would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you for letting us present today. Really appreciate that. I am the board chair of Pincher Creek Early Learning Center and Centers, and also the mayor of Pincher Creek. I want to really thank Livingston Range School Division for being so collaborative over the years and through the process of developing the early learning centers in Pincher Creek, of which one is Canyon Creek. And we've had a great working relationship. We received your information as far as your member is concerned on our board, and we all feel that a voting member is would be really relevant to us. The part of the background when we set the organization up, it's held at arm's length. The town owns the company, I guess. It is a not-for-profit, federal licensed not-for-profit now. And when we set it up, we wanted to be able to have this organization community driven. So the makeup of the board is at the moment is 9 members, 3 municipally appointed members from the town of Pinch Creek, of which I'm one, 4 members at large, and because we work so closely with the school divisions on the land and the buildings and the programming, at that time, those two board positions were also included in the 9-person board. So Ola stated a lot of reasons why. I totally understand meetings and more meetings, but if you can see it to appoint your member as a voting member to our board, we would really appreciate it. I think it's significant what you've done over the years with us in this regard, and I think there's lots of good reasons and collaboration, and we've always really worked well together. So if you can see your way clear to do that, I'd appreciate it. Our board would appreciate it. And I have to say, Lacey has been a great addition and brings a wealth of knowledge and a perspective to the board that we really appreciate. So thank you for listening to us. And are there any questions?
Thank you both for taking the time to come and be here today. And I appreciate both of you for your kind words. It's been wonderful to get to know all the members of the PCC-ELC working on that board together. At this time, if there are any trustees who have clarifying questions, I'll open it up to them at this time. Thanks, Trustee Hodges, for the microphone information. Is there anyone who has any clarifying questions at this time? Trustee Yagos?
If a change is made on the board, like if we decide, if we become, is that, how are these how is your makeup set out? Is it by policy, or is it in your bylaws? And how is this going to affect it?
Yes, it is. It is by bylaw, and we'd have to amend our bylaw and make a decision on whether we're staying at a 9-member board or moving perhaps back to a different number. So there is some business at hand there, and that can be handled, obviously, but we'd really appreciate it if you saw your way clear to appoint a voting member, then we could continue on as we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trustee Yagos. And is there any other questions at this time for the delegates? Trustee Toon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really appreciate both you being here today and the work that you do in your community to help early learning. My question is, when is your organizational meeting? And is that occur yearly, or is that every 2 years?
No, we have an annual organizational meeting. So actually, after the election, because we have municipally appointed officials, that's when we generally have our organizational meeting to vote on chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer.
Go ahead, Trustee Toon.
Sorry, so just to clarify, has that occurred since the election? That's already occurred?
Yes, it has.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Any other questions? Okay, I'm seeing none. So I want to thank you both again for coming and presenting to us here today and for answering our questions. As stated in our policy, there will be a written response to your delegation sent out to you as soon as that is possible and ready. So thank you both again, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much for your guys' questions, and I look forward to having more conversation. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, moving on to F2, Honoring Spirit Indigenous Student Award. The Board of Trustees would like to congratulate Canyon School student Bella Storm for her nomination for the Honoring Spirit Indigenous Student Award. This award is intended to recognize First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students who model strength and commitment in the pursuit of their personal education path and embrace their own gifts, strengths, and potential while celebrating the ways of their people. Further, the Honoring Spirit Indigenous Student Award provides the opportunity to celebrate the unique qualities of students who inspire their peers, teachers, educational leaders, and community members while respecting the agency of other students to do the same in their own way. So we're very excited to have Miss Bella Storm from Canyon School nominated for this, and she has been recognized on the website in the spring, but is also going to be recognized in the school in front of her class. So congratulations to her, and we're so excited to have another student who's been nominated for this. Yay. Moving on to F3, Alberta School Board Association Long-Term Service Award. So the Alberta School Board Association Long-Term Service Award recognizes a significant contribution to trustees, and the board chair would like to congratulate and thank this year's recipients. Do you want me to go through? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So not all of our recipients are here today, but we have Trustee Yegos, who has served for 3 terms as a trustee. So congratulations to you. I don't have my mask, yeah. Congratulations, Trustee Yegos. Okay, I'll leave my mask on for the moment. Also, we'd like to recognize Trustee Toon, who has served 2 terms of service, which is 8 years. So congratulations to Trustee Toon. Also, Trustee Hodges serving 3 terms again. Congratulations, Trustee Hodges. Oh, you're doing it. Okay. We also have Trustee John McKee, who is not here today. He is a retired trustee now, but he served 3 terms, and we appreciate his service. So congratulations to Trustee McKee. And Trustee James, or Jim Burdette, who served 4 terms as a trustee. So congratulations to him. I just want to say, as board chair, it's so amazing to look around this room and all the knowledge and the terms that have been served and the experience that we sit and have sitting here at our table that we can all reflect on, and we appreciate you guys serving and being a local voice for our students. So thank you all so much, and we look forward to adding on to those long-term terms. Okay, perfect. So we'll move on to F4, Alberta Education Assurance Survey Measures. Chad Kuzak, our Associate Superintendent, Curriculum and Innovation, will present the Alberta Education Assurance Survey Measures to the Board of Trustees. Mr. Kuzak?
Thank you. And for some of you that received that award, this is a number of measurements coming your way again. It's just, it's that time of year again. So I'll start by saying this is an assurance measures. These are a little bit different than what we've seen before, but we're going to walk through and see some data that's available to us. So the next slide there, Nikki. Remember, as we go through there, our mission, vision, and core values as we work through this, and those things we built together, how they're represented in some of the data that you're going to see. Next slide. So right there, you can see there's not a lot of color. There's not a lot of measurement evaluation. That's because some of these are new. Some of these do have different questions, and it's providing a baseline for us as we move forward with this new tool. But I like to see that blue that's located right there, especially since this is something we've been working on for a while. So that's just, I'll talk more about that as we move forward. But that's kind of some of the reasons you're not seeing some of those evaluations. So some will be new, some will be old. This is one that's new. This is student engagement, and as you look there, we're right around the provincial average. So that's good, and it's a new measurement. We'll learn more about that, but it's basically the percentage of teachers, parents, students who agree that students are engaged in their schooling. Next one. Citizenship. This is something we have been talking about, and we're actually above the province slightly, but what I want to draw attention to in this particular one was citizenship and students that model these characteristics of active citizenship is that this is their second highest result in the last 5 years. So it's a very positive correlation that we're seeing right now. And again, some of the questions in this may be different, but for the most part, we get the gist of that we're on a good trajectory of that. So that's citizenship. Next one. This is the one I spoke of before. Before that was not green. Our 3-year completion rate improved significantly from the last one, almost 10% increase in students that graduated within those 3 years or completed high school in those 3 years. Very proud of the work our schools have done and our principals and our teachers specifically and our students as they work through COVID and those sorts of things to get through that. Things I want to bring awareness to the board is we're above provincial average, which is, again, I like that. That's good. I'm not an average person, just to clarify, but if that's all I have to measure on, I'll use it for the good. There was no diplomas last year either, right, and the year before that. So we have situations that may draw some attention at what's different. That's one thing that's different. But what else is different is the work the career practitioners have done. Our virtual school providing flexibility, and moving forward our summer school for kids to get some of those courses they need to be able to graduate in 3 years. And then also our 4-year completion and 5-year completion has been acceptable and it's maintained itself. So that's good as well too, right around that provincial average. Again, that really speaks to the teachers that we have in our division and the students that have worked hard to get that through in difficult times and challenging times. So sorry, Nikki, I can continue talking about that on and on. I'd like to see that blue. All right, the next one we have right now is our 5-year. Again, I spoke to that, but we're right around that provincial average, and it's reflective of the 2017-18 student population we saw. And again, we're pretty well flatlining is the word I'd use to be able to see where we're at with those students completing within 5 years. Next one, education quality. This is basically satisfied with the overall quality of basic education of parents and students and teachers. And you can see we're equal to the province again. Again, this is one that's there, maybe potentially different questions and things of that nature, but the just is there. And it's the second highest that we've had in the past 5 years. So that's pretty good. Next one there. So this is a new one, welcoming, caring, safe learning environment. And as you can see, we started off pretty strong. We scored above the province on this one. It's a new measurement. So yeah, we'll have to watch that, and it's kind of a benchmark for us. But we started, like I said, above the province, which is good. But we want to continue growth in that area as well, obviously, which is tough to do when you're almost at 90%. But we'll continue to work towards that. Access to supports and services, again, a new one. And again, we're above the province slightly with this one. Again, a new measurement and fairly good results here. And as far as the parents and students believe that their students have access to appropriate supports and services at school. And Richard can speak a lot about this as we move forward in the years to come, but this is something we focused on over the years and we're seeing some results of that with this particular question. Parent involvement. Again, we always score fairly high here. And again, it's one of the higher results that we've had for a while, and we're above the province. And it's just a percentage of teachers and parents satisfied with their involvement in decisions about their child's education. So yeah, it's something to keep in mind that, again, we're above the province slightly, but by 1%, but we're working hard to get that up, continue that growth. Okay, so now this is supplemental measure. These are stuff that were measured before. Some of these are, the reason why you may not see them going forward is because they're difficult to measure and they don't necessarily tell the whole story in some of these situations, but some do. There is some, all data tells a story. All data will be, analyzed in some way. I'm going to analyze some of these things. And what, they're not on our summary. They're not on the first piece you saw, but you do see a red there, and I need to speak to that. So basically, we had a decline in dropout. That's our dropout rate, but we did see an increase in safe and caring, increase in school improvement, increase in work preparation. So we can do the next slide. So I'll start with this. Basically, approximately 46 students are included in this stat. We went from around the 3% to a 6% dropout rate with these students. Now, keep in mind, if a student leaves our division or goes to another country, they potentially could be considered a dropout, right? So it's just simply a way that the government is trying to see the students did not get an Alberta diploma and they're not in our school system or any school system in Alberta. Yes, Lacey.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just for clarity, if a student moves from our school division into a homeschooling program and they're not with Livingston Range homeschooling, would that be a dropout? Would
No.
that be counted in the dropout, or as long as they're reported to Alberta Ed?
I can double check on that, but I do not believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, and it's most of the homeschooling situations, there's assumptions made, they're still being educated some way in Alberta. It's that we don't know where these students particularly are getting their education this particular time. And so approximately is 46 students that are we're talking about. And so we dug deep into where this, like we did before, I looked at every single student that was on that list and identified what's taking place. So 23%, so 15 of those students were what considered non-starters. They never started high school with us. They are on our books, they're with us, and those students we've never had the opportunity to have these students graduate. So these students have moved on to other places, locations, areas. As far as I know, it's hard to say, or not going to school at all. It's hard to say. All I know for sure is they're not on record of where they're at. So they've had 0 credits with us, and some of them may have finished their schooling by grade 9. So 30%, and this is what I associate this with, especially compared to our 3-year graduation rate we just saw, is that we have some students that shouldn't set, when you have the 5 years you saw that rate, that's how much time they have to graduate as they're still working through some courses, right? 19 of these students were in the ages of 17 and 18 years old, and they're not registered anywhere in Alberta for education. This speaks to me, and I make some assumptions that COVID may have had an effect on this result. That these students, we don't know where they are. We've heard it across the province, and in some regards, I'm not surprised at some of those numbers that are there as we try to move forward during this pandemic. So that's 30% is that, and then 18% of the students are ones I may even got one of the students enough to graduate by going through that with a fine-tooth comb. 95 to 105 credits these students had, these 12 students. They're so close to being able to graduate and just to get them to that next step. That's been our focus for a number of years now, and I think the summer school and the virtual school, I anticipate these results to get better in that area for those 12 students that are potentially having issues getting that social 30 or that math or all those things that we talked about, that some of them had, up to 105, had enough credits, they didn't have the right kind of credits to earn a diploma. So those are the folks that we're going to focus on. So lots of blues, lots of positives. This is something we'll continue to work on, and I think we need to, in my opinion, to see what next year's results tell us. And you'll notice with the other, I didn't mention, there's no diploma or PAT marks on here, obviously. I'm excited to see what next year brings as we get some results on there. So, Lori. Oh, sorry, Trustee Hodges. My apologies.
That's okay. Sorry, do we or can we reach out to these students that we know are so close?
Well, that was the one student in particular I spoke of. Yeah, yes, I do. If they're past the 5 years, it's difficult.
Yeah.
And these students, those are that have that 95 to 105 or beyond 5 years, or 22-year-old students and stuff. I do, if I can, the teacher in me says, hey, did you know you're only missing a couple classes? And so if we can get a hold of them, we can, but a lot of these students are living on their own. Some have families of their own now and they've moved on, right? So, but if I can, absolutely. But those students going through, so I'll bring it back, rewind a little bit here. Our career practitioners have done a lot of, and our teachers and our counselors in our school, but I'll speak to the career practitioners, have touched base with every grade 12 student they possibly can to identify the credits they need to graduate. And I think through those discussions, we're having these discussions saying, hey, you have 118 credits. You need more, you need your social 30 or you don't graduate, or you need your math 30 -2 or else you don't graduate. These are the real end discussions that a second set of eyes on there, besides the parents, besides the students, besides the principals, besides any academic advising going on, to have at least our career practitioners just to do a second take, just to make sure that they're aware of where they need to go. And I'll rewind back to, I believe that the virtual school and summer school provide the flexibilities for some of these students out of sequence to be able to get that. I think some of you on the board have heard me say that a bunch of times, especially about that second chance when they get out of cycle, and rural education means they have to wait a full year to get that bio or chem or social, and this allows them those opportunities to do that. So I anticipate, and one of our strategies is that we'll see increase of graduation rates moving forward. It's a bold statement, I know, but I need to make. I believe it. I really do believe it. Okay, and so on to some other stuff, some things that may not be, they are good. They're not like that. In that our Rutherford, we see right there a significant increase from 2016 to we're at the acceptable range for the students who are eligible for the Rutherford Scholarship. So that's fantastic. And the safe and caring, we've always been high there. You can see we're at 90%. Again, it's the highest we've had in 5 years in the provinces as well too. So making sure that students feel safe at school and learning importance of caring for others and respect for others is embedded into what we do with our schools. So through that survey, it was demonstrated that that's the case. And then again, these are supplementary as well. And then school improvement, again, we're significantly above the province in this one, and it's our highest result in 5 years that we've received. So, and I think one more, yeah. So transition rate, a very difficult one to measure. These are the province can only get access to where their students are located. Some students go to the United States for university and college. Some go to different provinces, on and on. But we do our best to measure and track that. And again, it looks like we're basically, we've had an increase in that relatively from last year, and we're maintaining that acceptable level of that transition rates. Our career practitioners have separate sets of data we're trying to collect where our students go as far as university and college or trade schools. So to have a better picture to see if we're servicing our students in that manner. So you'll see that on the next slide, actually. If you click on the next slide, some of that work towards work preparation. Again, this is the highest result we've had in 5 years as far as students. They're going to be successful at work when they finish school. And so that work preparation, again, the focus on some of our off-campus and some of the divisional and school programs that are available for students to have them prepared for the workforce. So lots of numbers I've thrown at you, and I think that's the last one, Nikki. More to come, and we'll continue to talk and work on this, and the schools have their own that they're working on, and specifically for them, and just having those conversations with their communities and public and their teachers, and to identify strategies that can help their 3-year plans inside the schools with that data. So more to come, but some of it is looking pretty promising at this point in time. So I open it up to the board for any questions you may or may not have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kuzak. We know that you put in a lot of time and effort into following our students and tracking them down and getting these numbers and getting students the success that they're looking for. So is there any board members who have questions at this time? Trustee Hodges?
I know I should know this, but I can't remember. When is this survey done?
Well, it's done in the spring, but it's done in March is when we did it this year, March, and it got extended to April due to COVID things that were taking place. And so it got extended. So it's March, April. Usually we receive the initial results in the spring and get some in the fall, but these were somewhat later and we just received them approximately a month ago, I think, a month and a half ago, somewhere in there. So yeah, so we're on a different kind of cycle now as far as
Right.
what we do with these results now to get ready for the following year.
And so it's even pretty encouraging to see that we've reached some all-time highs, even going through COVID, but it'll be interesting now to see how we move forward out of it and still through it in the next set of the survey.
And some of Mr. Perry's data speaks to that as well too. We didn't see some
Yeah.
of that student switching schools per se or divisions. There's a lot of positive that we can see in both pieces of data. And again, to our excellent staff and students and parents that have worked through this at this particular point in time. So very proud.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Is there any other questions from the trustees? Trustee Toon?
Thank you. Really appreciate you bringing this forward to us again. And like you said, looking forward to how things look next year with another set of data based on the changes that are there. Did you see any difference in number of participants over a traditional year? Was it down some? I know that's always a challenge, sitting in parent councils and hearing the principals really encouraging everyone to fill out the surveys in that, but just wondering if there was a change.
Oh, the song? Always wanted to say that. Yes and no. Like some schools had less, some had same, some had more. So did I identify in that there was much less than previous? Not necessarily, at least for sure, not last year, but there was some schools that had significantly less and some that had more. So generally, it's relatively balances out a bit. So.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Is there any other questions from trustees at this time? No? Okay, then we just want to thank you once again, Mr. Cusack, for your presentation and for your constant efforts to keep our students moving in the right direction and giving them all the different opportunities and paths that they can to get where they need to be.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, at this time, I guess we will take a 5-minute break, and as our next presenter just isn't here quite yet, and I ask that you please be back at 3 o'clock and be ready to go. Thank you.
I think she
Works well. Sorry I can't be there in person.
It's okay. So I'm just going to introduce here, we have the student wellness presentation. We have Dr. Kendra Massey joining us, the clinical team lead, and she will update the Board of Trustees regarding student wellness throughout the Livingston Range School Division. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Dr. Massey.
Okay, thanks for the brief intro there. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. I'm a little more familiar with Google, but we should be okay here. And then, oh, I can see you a little bit, so this is good. And let me just start it. There we go. Perfect. You can see that, and you can see me in a small circle or a square, I guess. All right, and you can hear me clearly, I assume. All right, well, let's get going. Feel free to interrupt with a question as we go, but it might work a little bit easier if we hold on to a few questions at the end. I'll try and leave a few minutes. I won't take a lot of time, brother, and I already see a mistake, so I apologize. It's the report, no. Yes, there is a mistake in this. So this is for last school year. I have the date of our presentation correct, but it is for a review of last year. And so let me highlight what I hope to cover here with you briefly. We want to talk a little bit about our mission and vision again this year and highlight how it's connected to the work that we're doing in our division. A primary goal of the presentation is to review some of the goals and the work that our family school liaison counselors do. You'll hear me often refer to them as our school counselors or our FSLs. So know that we're referring to this group of lovely individuals. I'll talk about who those people are what the student needs are within our school, and then how our FSL team alongside myself are working on a daily basis to understand and meet the needs of our students. And then we'll end with some questions at the end, or question and answer period. You're all very familiar with our mission and vision, but we want to highlight what they are here. Our mission is to inspire excellence through meaningful relationships, innovation, and collaboration. And the vision is every student, every day. And our team really takes certainly the full mission and our vision, put parts of it together and really work to understand what this means for them as FSLs, but what it really means on a daily basis for our school staff. What does it mean to have meaningful relationships? And a key piece is that they are meaningful, that they're intentional, and that we're having relationships with every student and every day, because we know that it is through relationships, through a connection with a trusting adult in a safe environment. And by safe environment, we mean physically, emotionally, socially, and academically safe. That these are the relationships and the methods that students achieve to their best ability. And so we take every student every day and live it out. Our students, or our FSL, see some of the most challenging students. And it can get quite challenging at times for staff to maintain relationships with every student every day when they exhibit some either concerning behaviors like anxiety, depression, self-harm, but also really challenging behaviors like disruptive behavior, disrespectful behavior, rule-breaking behavior. And often there is a hit to a relationship or when we see concerning and challenging behavior. So a big piece that our FSLs do on a daily basis, either directly with students or within the school building and with staff, is to help them understand how we form and maintain relationships with every student every day. And a big piece is that we want to highlight that the school is the learning environment for all things. Typically or traditionally, we think of this as school as being a place where kids come to learn. And that is important. But what we know is that there are many factors or things that are connected to learning that if they're not optimized, kids won't learn to their true potential or learn in an optimal way. And this is their social well-being, their emotional well-being, how they conduct themselves and what their behavior is like. And what we've learned is, or what we are aware of, is that the school is the learning environment for these things. The counseling room is a piece of it, but kids are actually learning all of the skills that they need to have appropriate relationships, to have a good and positive behavior, and to learn different subjects or different activities when they are well and have meaningful relationships. So this is really what guides our work at a broad scale, but often small conversations that we have day to day. So let's talk a little bit about our program, the Family School Liaison Counselor Program. I'd like to highlight what the main overarching goal is of our team. And that is there at the top of the slide, to optimize learning, development, and well-being of students by reducing or preventing student challenges. So what does that look like on a daily or weekly basis for our team? First, there are 3 different types of services that our counselors typically provide. There is direct counseling, where the counselors meet one-on-one with students and provide different types of services that I'll talk a little bit more about today to better understand what's going on for them, to enhance their well-being, development, and thus learning. A big piece, and especially more so over the last few years, and even we see a little bit more in our elementary schools compared to our high schools, is a huge role for our FSLs is on consultation and collaboration. So being part of school teams, being integrated into the educators in our school buildings to help staff understand the various factors that are contributing to a child's wellness or learning in the classroom. We have a big focus on consultation and collaboration that I'll expand on here in a little bit. Thirdly, that our FSLs are involved in either group or classroom programming that can include clubs. Last year, though, through our school year, we did see that especially groups or clubs were reduced given the restrictions that came regarding COVID. Now, who are we providing services to? Certainly students first and foremost is always the focus of our work, but often our counselors are working directly with students. As I've highlighted, there's a lot of work around with school staff that involves our consultation or collaboration activities. We are typically working with families, sometimes just to get permission and consent to be working with their kids, but we also will work with families to support them in understanding, advocating, or supporting their kids. So sometimes that might be giving them resources. Often our FSLs are involved with families to connect them to community professionals or programs or agencies that may be of support for their child and their family. So this includes everything from making referrals to family doctors or encouraging a pediatrician to be involved, linking to services or programs that can provide them with financial support or extracurricular activities in their community. So who is our team? The team is the same as who we had last year, which is always nice to continue on with a team that works so well together and knows one another. We would highlight that given some increases in funding that we made last year, we had a higher FTE, so full-time equivalent, compared to the start of the previous school year. So this is not this year. This was the start of last year compared to the prior year. And we had just over 10 full-time staff with us. We would highlight that they are quite a diverse group. The one way they are not diverse is that they're all female. We do not have a male counselor on our team, but in terms of their backgrounds and their stages in life, they're all very different. We have some just at the college level, some have undergrad degrees, and there are several that have master's degrees, and they come from many different areas: child and youth care work, addictions counseling, social work, and also counseling psychology. At the end of last year, there were 2 of our longer term counselors who have decided to pursue registering as a psychologist, and they now have a provisional status. And we would like to highlight, or I'm highlighting that because it's a big deal. Becoming a psychologist in Alberta is not an easy piece, nor is it required for what FSLs are doing in our building. So it's definitely a piece that we're proud of and encouraging our counselors to be taking these steps in terms of their own career, but also in terms of how they can contribute to the work that they do within our division. All right, so who is our team? Just briefly, in terms of their allocations or the full-time equivalent across our division. So just as a reminder, 1.0 means they're full-time and they work the 5 days with us. 0.2 is 1 day a week. You can see that the majority of our schools have between 0.8 and 1.0. Branham and WD, they're in orange, share the same school counselor, as well as Isabel Sallin and Horace Allen out in the past, they share a counselor. So that is what that 10.26 division looks like across our district. Talk a little bit about student challenges and concerns. We would, I think, highlight that they are very diverse and complex. They have been and they continue to be. What we've noticed over the last year with COVID is an increase in the number of difficulties and challenges. So these things that are presented on the slide remain largely the same last year. We didn't have, I would say last year, a lot of increase in really significant mental health challenges, but there was a greater number of students presenting with some of the challenges on this slide. So from kind of a learning or classroom school-based level, some of the things that we find that makes our students quite diverse and varied from one another is that we see all sorts of more biological difficulties in terms of how they think and how they learn. some of the developmental disabilities or delays they may have, and this includes things like ADHD, autism spectrum disorder. And then we also have kids in our buildings that are dealing with many physical challenges or delays that can impact, for example, their ability to be mobile and move throughout the school. Certainly an area that we're well aware of within my umbrella is the mental health difficulties of kids, where the most common ones are symptoms of anxiety and depression. So for example, having lots of worries, avoidance, withdrawal, low mood. These are often the challenges that our FSLs are presented with. Definitely varied backgrounds, certainly in some of our schools like FP Walsh, Matthew Halton, WA Day, where there is a good percentage, maybe upwards of 30, 40% of kids that are dealing with some of the following difficulties, not just on a one-off, but on a kind of year-to-year basis. These difficulties include grief and loss of aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents, drug and alcohol use within the family, sometimes by themselves, and certainly some family violence that might present as domestic violence or violence within the family unit. So for example, parents to kids. What we noticed last year that was different from the year before, even though the pandemic started kind of 2 school years ago, is that kids were likely presenting with the consequences of things going on for them in their home or in their communities. So we know, based on research or just anecdotal reports of kids and families, that family life has changed. And for some, not all, but some of our low-income families, some of our affluent families, there has been a change with the presentation of our pandemic. There is more stress in the home. There's a lot more uncertainty around finances and activities and wellness, and wellness being physical wellness. There was a lot of, as we know, school uncertainty as to whether kids would be in the building learning, whether the entire school was out, whether they would have to be isolating then at home and switch back to a virtual format. It was very uncertain, it was very unpredictable, and it varied throughout the school year. And another challenging impact was that there was a lack of wellness activities. All of the things that kids and families do for enjoyment, for wellness, for a break from school and real life, like being at the gym, going swimming, groups and clubs outside of school, it was largely unavailable for a good portion of the school year. And these different stresses or challenges or experiences of kids, we found that it impacted them. Not in really significant concerning mental health difficulties, but of just more stress, more uncertainty, more uneasiness. And when kids come into the building with that, we know that their learning is impacted and they're likely not learning in the most optimal ways. And so this is something that we've been aware of and just were constantly last year having to respond to through our school buildings. So I've highlighted this a little bit, but I'll go into a little more detail. What are some of the most common challenges and concerns that our FSLs are getting involved with? So our FSLs get involved when kids come to them to say they need help, when teachers or staff, EAs come and say, I'm concerned or I'm uncertain about this kid, or when parents come. And here are the usually presenting problems as we describe it when kids come in to see our school counselors. Stress and pressure, feeling uneasy, not being able to meet expectations, feeling worried are certainly among the top concerns and challenges that were faced by kids and thus our team last year. There's a lot of talk on relationships. Relationships being the ability to develop and maintain appropriate social relationships, typically with peers, but sometimes we look at with the adults in the school environment. That is one of the kind of the top 3 things that is of concern for kids. We do see, though, many that struggle with their self-concept, identity, or their self-esteem, and that's a reason for referral. certainly, as I've highlighted, a lot of our kids do struggle with things related to their mood, often being low, sad, described as depressed, but depressed can look like very different things in different kids. To also having elevations in mood that can impact school well-being and learning. And then we certainly saw a little bit more at a couple of our high schools of increases in some self-harm or suicidal ideation. And what's important, I'll just highlight here, is what our team is typically involved with is doing an assessment to understand the level of risk or concern for safety for these kids and making a plan for next steps for safety that might be done at a school level, a family level, or a medical level. We are not within our schools taking these kids on to provide the treatment, the mental health treatment. Rather, this is when we are referring into our community to our mental health centers. What is the focus then? When kids are coming into our counseling rooms, or when our FSLs are having groups or classroom representations, what's the focus of this support? One of the primary areas is on mental health education. So what is mental health? What does it look like? What are the signs that we have something going on for ourselves? If we see concerns of mental health, like symptoms of anxiety or depression in our friends, what can or should students be doing when presented with that information? Another big focus is on emotion regulation. So this varies in terms of what it looks like from our grade 1 classrooms to grade 7 and grade 12. But basically, it often means being aware of our feelings, what they are, what they mean, how we can express them in a safe and appropriate way, and then how we can cope with them, either as an individual or with the support of classroom teachers, families. Another focus is on coping with stress and anxiety. So when these things are a part of my daily life, how can I, for example, cope at school? How do I get through a day at school or a week at school when I'm often feeling this sense of stress, pressure, and anxiety? We have a lot of focus, again, on the peer relationships. So supporting kids in being able to develop and maintain appropriate peer relationships. And so this can often look like recess or lunchtime groups where there are activities led by an FSL that are designed to create some connections, but to have an adult there that's able to guide kids in responding to challenges and difficulties and uncomfortable feelings that come up when you're with peers. And so that's often a piece that we have happening, especially at our elementary and middle school classrooms or school. Another few pieces on student support that we're providing. There is a good focus on character and self-esteem building with kids and youth. And then also we like to highlight there is this piece of crisis response. So the crisis is something, or is everything from a student has disclosed that they have cut their wrist, to they have some thoughts of suicide, to school staff learn that one student has threatened to harm, beat up another student. These are kind of crises. And the role of the FSLs, often as part of a team, are to do an assessment that we would call a risk assessment to understand what level of risk is here, what's going on for kids, but not for the purpose of saying, here's what's happening, but here's what's happening and here's what we can do about it. And moving into recommendation giving and safety planning for not just a student, not just a family, but for classrooms, for the school, for our community, for the clubs or the sports that they might be a part of. Okay, so what did this look like in our 2021 school year? I'm going to present a little bit of data. We would like to highlight that this data is likely a bit of an underestimate of how many kids were seen or how many group activities were done, because it relied on our FSLs remembering to enter every single kid and every single group into our data collection software. But I think it's likely a pretty good estimate of what actually happened last year in our building. So there was a great big increase in the number of groups for various reasons. Groups often being because it was COVID, they were classroom presentations for same class cohorts, and very few clubs last year. There were clubs, they were like little recess clubs. But what happened? So when there was 89 of these, 30 of them were single presentations given by our FSLs. 21 of them had was a short-term group that included 2 to 4 sessions. There were 20 groups that ran sessions that were 5 to 8 sessions long in detail, in length. And then there were roughly 19 groups that were either running routinely, which may have been like every other week for a good number of weeks, or weekly throughout the school year. The primary areas of focus of these group or classroom activities were on social skills. So again, being able to develop and maintain social relationships, a lot on mental health education, emotion regulation, how can we cope with all of these feelings that we're encountering, but also self-concept and identity. Okay. What about some of the individual work that our students did? There was at minimum 522 students, roughly 15% of our population that received individual services. Just a little overview of what we were doing or what the students presented with in terms of challenges. The primary area of concern, so that we say primary because often kids come with 2 or 3 areas that are a struggle, but we ask FSLs to highlight or to record which is the main area of concern. Here's what they are. Of those 522, 39% presented with anxiety, worries, concern as being the number one area for concern and why treatment or support was being requested. Social relationships was found in 29% of our kids. Trauma, so trauma meaning risk of harm to ourselves from the past. Everything from being in a car accident to there's domestic violence in our home to my grandmother had COVID and was very, very sick. So when there is a risk of harm to self or others, and it can be perceived or real, that's what we mean by trauma. 17% of our kids highlighted that this was a big area of difficulty or concern for them. A lot of our kids presented needing individual support who had had ADHD, roughly 16%, depression at 14%, and then some self-harm or suicidal thoughts or tendencies at 12%. The focus of service largely kind of follows in a logical way that data, the focus of that individual work. It was roughly 24% focused on stress and coping, being able to manage throughout the school day, but certainly at home as well. 16%, the focus was on, I have anxiety, what can I be doing about it? How does it present? How does it impact me? What does it say about me? And how do I move forward in a way that I might still have some anxiety, but I can still sit through a class, still learn, still focus, still have friends. Emotion regulation was another common focus of the work, addressing some family challenges or issues at 12%, and then the focus on relationships, again, on how to develop and maintain relationships is roughly 10% of the focus of service. All right, we kind of wrap things up here. Most of this is review, but there's a few things that I'd like to highlight in terms of here's the work that I am often encouraging and consulting with our FSL team. Certainly there has been an increased focus on consulting with school staff. Sometimes it's one-off consults in a staff room or in the counseling room, but we have seen that FSLs are very much part of either educator teams or learning services teams to be better understanding a student, not in terms of a description of their behavior or their learning, but the factors that are underlying it, of like what's going on for kids. And FSLs bring that focus of there's a good description of the behavior, but why is it happening? To things like our individualized student plans, our behavior support plan meetings. Big last year and moving forward this year is collaborative response, and then our case conferences. When I say that the focus is on underlying is on understanding the factors underlying challenging behaviors, let me take a few moments to highlight that. Often our FSLs are involved with kids who are challenged or concerning in some way, and we get descriptors of behaviors. They're withdrawn, they're disruptive, they are disrespectful, they're doing things for attention. These are frequently the descriptions of kids' behaviors. What we know about kids, though, is that they're doing the best they can with what they've got. And no kid wants to be, quote, the bad kid. Even if we don't label them as the bad kid, they feel it. And no kid wants to be that kid. So if we see disrespectful behavior, we assume this is not about being disrespectful. It is about things underlying that for them, that they are worried, that they're concerned, that they're fearful, and that they don't trust adults, that their environments aren't safe. And so there is a big focus on, let's not just focus on behaviors, let's understand some of those factors that are underlying them. And there's a few more examples like emotional safety, feeling valued and important, that are certainly big factors that FSLs are drawing attention to during the various meetings that I outlined previously. There has been a move, especially at our elementary years, to supporting students in the natural environments. And within school, what this means is supporting kids not in the counseling room, because this is not a natural environment, but in the classroom, at recess, in the hallways, with peers doing day-to-day activities like playing games and setting up crafts and preparing for school events. Because again, we know that kids learn in relationship with somebody else in their natural environment. Kids, especially roughly 12 or 13 years and younger, and those with significant concerns at an older age, don't learn in a counseling room. They learn in the moment with adult support. So by being in the classroom, in the hallways, our FSLs are achieving a lot of things. One, they are supporting students in the most optimal way, and that's just in real life. But also there's natural benefits and kind of consequences in positive ways to being in the classrooms and in the classrooms, in the classrooms and in the hallways and on the playgrounds, is that by being present there, our FSLs are being able to model how to support students in an optimal way. And through that, then we're able to, or we're seeking to, enhance the staff capacity about understanding and supporting student well-being and behavior. I've highlighted already that some of the work that we're doing is trying to connect families to our external support. So it might be our mental health programs in their communities. It might be family supports for children with disabilities that can provide funding for families to access everything from respite to their own private therapy. What we have noticed over the last number of years, and particularly last year, is that the number of resources out there, or the speed of which students can access those supports, or how frequently they access those supports once they're in place, has been impacted in a negative way. So there are fewer supports, there are longer wait lists, there are greater amounts of time in between sessions. And when families are stretched and they're asked to do things like apply to FSCD on their own, it doesn't happen. And so we've seen that over the last year, a bit longer, this difficulty in getting families some of the community supports and resources that they would benefit from. I think I'm going to end with this piece. What about myself? So I'm clinical team lead. My training is in as a clinical psychologist. What is it that I'm doing on a daily basis? So primarily, I am supervising and overseeing some of what I've described to you at this point. So I am supervising and consulting with, often on a daily basis. Sometimes I can hear, it's a funny day when I hear from 7 of the, how many are there? 11 of them. And other days it's not quite that busy, but I supervise on a daily basis this very, very hardworking and talented team. I've also been fortunate, because I enjoy it, to be able to provide some professional development across the division. One of them was some threat assessment process training that happened last year. I was also involved with several schools and their full teams to enhance their ability to support and understand the kids in their building. And then I'm a part of a lovely learning services team. Last year it was quite large. We won't talk about this year until next year. But our goal as a team is to be able to use all of the expertise at the table on our team to be supporting the students in our building. So on everything from learning and academics and learning disabilities to their emotional well-being and their behavior. And so as part of that team, on a bi-weekly basis, we would consult on students, brainstorm on the next steps of how our team can support the referring schools and staff. And then as part of this team, I did provide some direct service that was consulting directly with learning service teams or attending various school or family meetings where things are just a little bit more challenging because they are complicated and might involve mental health and wellness elements. And so that's kind of my year in a nutshell in a very simplified way. And that brings me to the end. So I think if you have time, I have time for a few questions or things that I might be able to clarify or speak further to.
Thanks so much, Dr. Kendra Massey. We appreciate you coming and presenting to us. Is there any questions that the trustees have at this time? Okay, Trustee Hodges.
I guess not so much a question, but it's more of a comment. I know that it's been so hard on everyone, and we all know that the mental health supports are huge right now. And I really appreciate you and your FSLs going into classrooms and doing presentations, because we all know that not always will individual students come forward with their issues, but it's nice for them to know that the other kids around them are feeling the same way too. And so I think that's a really important piece of what you do. And so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you bet. Such an important piece. And you highlighted many of the reasons why in terms of being able to educate and support in a much more natural, inclusive environment. And yeah, let's just leave it at that.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Is there any other questions? Yes, Trustee Gimber.
Hi, thank you for all that information. I do have one question in regards to young or new students that are coming into the schools and the system, especially with COVID. You kind of have a benchmark with a grade 4 student of how they were in grade 2 or grade 1. But if they're brand new students in the system, how can you really tell if they're being affected by everything?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, we never know just based, or it can be difficult to be aware of those things just on presentation. And so what we're aware of within our schools that helps with that is typically when there's a new student to our building, certainly our admin team and often with our FSL meet with those families, get to know these families, try to understand some of the history from the family, from the student themselves, so that we're aware of what the history might be, what some potential concerns or challenges may be, so that we can be a bit proactive at times, or at least mindful of what some of the needs may be. And so it was my understanding that most of the schools do a fantastic job of getting to know kids when they're new to our building, and our FSLs are frequently part of those conversations, or certainly when they can be.
I just wanted to clarify, maybe on the earlier end even, so kindergarten students coming in and grade 1 students, is there a noticeable change in how they are responding right now than, let's say, 3 years ago?
Okay. No, and I can't speak to that as a whole, specifically. I've not heard that our kids are presenting at the kindergarten kind of grade 1 level with different sets of challenges or difficulties. I have heard at our kind of elementary, so like grade 3, 4, 5, 6, where school has been disrupted, or they've been at doing at-home learning, that their staff will describe it as there's this gap in terms of understanding what it means to be at school, following routines, being respectful with kids, how to problem solve. And these are not my words, but the words from kind of some school staff is it's like they've missed out on 2 years of their development. That's probably a bit of a strong way to describe it, but we have noticed with those kind of elementary, early junior high ages that there has been perhaps some increased behavioral difficulties that may be attributed to a lack of structure and set of routines during the last year and a half, or a very unpredictable type of year for them. But in terms of those early ones, I've not heard anything about kids coming into kindergarten grade 1 as presenting with atypical challenges or concerns that we might hypothesize are related to COVID and their experiences.
Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. And we want to thank you again, Dr. Massey, for coming and presenting to us today. And we in our division truly appreciate your forward thinking and your constant advocacy for the mental health of our students. And you're obviously an inspiration to the people you work with as we see them reaching to, become psychologists and moving forward with their own degrees and careers within our division. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate you coming today and all that you do for our division. And we look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Okay, so thank you guys so much for those questions. There's definitely a lot going on with mental health in the province and in our division, and it's something we want to keep an eye on. We're going to move on to F6 now, our transportation presentation.
They're like standing in the hallway.
Yeah, I think they're close. I've seen them pacing. Here we go. So we have our transportation coordinator Mike Cahoon and transportation secretary Christy Edwards, who will present a transportation update to the Board of Trustees. And we want to thank you both for your patience and for bearing with us while we finished our last presentation and got those questions in. And we welcome you guys to the meeting. Let's give them a minute to get set up here. You gotta turn.
Christy's just getting logged in to get our presentation up. So I just wanted to take a minute though and thank all the trustees and as well as senior admin for really giving us all the tools that we have to do our jobs. We do appreciate our jobs and we have a great time here, and I think we get lots done as well, but we do appreciate the decisions that are made here to give us the tools to do our job. Thank you very much. It was part of the presentation. we can go ahead to that next slide, Christy. So those of you that don't know me, I'm Mike Cahoon. I've been the transportation coordinator for just a few short months here. Beside me is Rick. He's been our head mechanic and is coming on board to take over as the transportation coordinator. This is Rick. This is your trustees and your senior admin. Christy is our rock star secretary. She's been on board for a few years now, and she just does a great job for us and keeps us all in line. We can go ahead to the next one. So I believe these are the goals that were set out last year by the transportation crew, looking for 5 new buses and 15 new bus drivers. And they implemented a recruitment program. And honestly, I know Christy did most of it. And if you go ahead and flip to the next slide, Christy, you can see we did end up with our buses, and projections of 15 drivers, we come out of it with 34. Christy did a great job with that program. I know Phil was involved heavily as well, but it's been a real blessing for us that we had some spare drivers. Go ahead to the next one. So through it, in many of our communities, we have quite a few spare drivers, but we do have some communities where we're still lacking. And so we continue to try to encourage people, and we're still offering the MELT training and the S endorsement training to interested people, because we do, especially in that Pincher Creek and Lundbrick area, we need more spare drivers. Go ahead. So with our regular routes, we travel approximately 7,500 kilometers a day just getting our students to school. And if you do the math, it just adds up to per month and per year. We've put 12 drivers through the MELT program. That was again through Christy and Phil's work, and that went on in the spring and summer. So go ahead to the next one. Back in August, on about the 23rd, 24th, when all of the admin and everybody got back into the schools, I had a rude awakening because my phone started ringing. The cell phone, the office phone, the two-way radio, they all went off at the same time for the next 2 months. Rick's laughing because I've already warned him about that. And the big thing that the parents that get their concern is honestly ride times with their students, and feeling like, I mean, we all have busy lives, and when their student has to get on the bus prior to 7 a.m., it seems like, you know, that's where the complaints really come in. And we don't have many that are that bad, but that is the number one complaint that I get from parents. Go ahead, Christy. So here is our ride times and just some numbers in different communities. So if we start in Nanton, we run 7 different regular routes in Nanton when we bus 136 students, 41-minute average ride time. Our longest ride time is 115 minutes, and that starts out on Highway 22. Just to give you some reference, it's on that. That's where our earliest pickup is, 6:40 a.m. So as parents, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. When we're talking about ride times, this is each way. So that student would be on 115 minutes
One
to
way.
school, and then 100.
Yes. Yes.
No? One way. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So that is in Nanton, kind of the figures, and always feel free to jump in with a question if you want. So in that Staveley area, we run 4 routes, 145 students, 37-minute average ride time, with a 95-minute being the longest. And that is a student that's out east near that Clear Lake area. Claresholm, we run 7 routes, 161 bus students, 35-minute average ride time, and 80-minute is the longest ride time. And we have several different routes that have that approximate same long ride time. Those results in Claresholm are a bit skewed on the average ride time, because just south of Claresholm in those acreages out south of the golf course. There's a lot of students there that have a very short ride time. And so that does skew that average a little bit. If you took them out of there, that number would definitely go up. In Granham, we run 2 routes, 56 bus students, 36-minute average ride time, 82-minute is the longest ride. And in Granham, we have 1 student that does require a bus equipped with a wheelchair lift. Fort McLeod, we run 6 routes, 208 bus students with a 35-minute average ride time, and a 91-minute is our long ride. And that's from out west, out past the Buffalo Jump and up. The family lives up by the forestry up in that road, up Beaver Creek Road. In Pincher Creek, 10 routes, 187 bus students, 45-minute average, and 103-minute is the long ride. And we have several routes that would be that long ride there that are within 5 minutes of their pickup time. Lundbrick, 4 routes, 123 bus students, 29-minute average ride. 78-minute is the longest ride. Our big challenge in Lundbrick is honestly Highway 3. That it's, as our buses have to enter and exit that highway, it really is a safety concern, and one that we are looking at what we can do to resolve it. When you have a bus that has to try and enter and exit that highway that many times, I think we just need to find a better solution out there. Crow's Nest Pass, as you can see, there's a lot of students that ride out there. As you're all aware, it's a little different setup in that community with the towns and the schools the way they are. 7 routes, 428 bus students, and a 20-minute average ride time. I think things work quite well up there. That 85-minute long ride is from out west on Tecumseh Road, and there's not much I don't think we can do with that. Go ahead, Christy. So our next steps and our next goals is honestly going through all the routes. Finally, here in November, it seems like the calls have started slowing down, and I've been able to get out and ride some routes with drivers and discuss with them, you know, how things are working, what we can do different, the problems. So in November, I've been out and rode 4 routes so far, and with more coming, and looking at ways we can optimize. The route sequence optimization, it's just really, you know, trying to make sure it's being run the most efficient. Reviewing driver assignments, it's trying to make sure that the right driver is in the right route, whether it's from where they live, anything like that. And then fleet assignments is just whether or not with any changes to routes, we need to change what bus a certain driver would be using. So go ahead. Okay, and then I'm going to let Rick take over here.
No, it stays on, I think. Okay. As Mike said earlier, I am the full-time mechanic in Pincher Creek. I am moving up further here, but we are still in the process of looking for another full-time mechanic. We have 1 full-time mechanic and 1 part-time mechanic in the shop. We maintain 40 buses, which is approximately half the fleet. We do it all through, we do all the commercial vehicles, repairs, everything else. We do also take on all the major repairs that the other 3 community shops that we sublet to can't do or will not do. So we try and do them repairs in Pincher to help save money. So the goal of the Pincher Creek shop is to minimize all the major repairs and have a regular maintenance to keep the safety as our #1 focus. Go to the next one, Christy. In October, we had a DOT roadside inspection of 6 of our buses in Pincher Creek, and we passed with 100% pass rate.
That's not an easy task. I used to run a trucking company, and I guarantee you it wasn't that easy. So thanks, Rick, for the great job you do. Has anybody got any questions?
Thank you guys so much.
You bet.
We really appreciate you guys coming. Does anyone have any questions at this time for the transportation team before they take off? Trustee Yagos?
I just was wondering, there was that second slide in there, the one that you had where all the bus times, et cetera, et cetera. I know there's a lot of questions out there in regard, especially when you go to school councils. And I don't know if this is feasible to do. Maybe if the parents saw that, to just see that, there is a comparison. And by looking, yeah, that one. That's a good one to just, because I think everybody thinks that they've got the longest route. And you probably have heard from my area quite a bit. And yeah, and yeah, I agree with you about Highway 3. I think that one bus that goes 2 or 3 times across Highway 3, which is one of the busiest roads in the, and around here. So yeah, but I think this is a really good chart to let people, the public, see, if it's feasible.
Thank you, Trustee Yagos. It's funny, as you were talking, I was like writing down, can we see a list of and then I was like, oh, no, you got it right here. So I was just curious also. Is there any other questions from any other trustees? Yep, Trustee Hodges?
Not so much a question, but just want to say thanks to Mike for stepping in, and I know you're leaving us soon, and thanks to our new bus coordinator for stepping up, and hopefully there's a smooth transition for you. So thanks, Mike, for everything you did.
Thank you, Lori. You guys have all been great. It's been a good experience working here.
Yeah, we'll definitely miss your expertise, but we hear that Ken is really stepping up. So we're excited. We're sad to lose you from the shop, but we know you'll do great. Go ahead, Trustee Long.
Well, Mike, I'm just looking in my mail here, and I don't have, didn't find anyway a copy of this presentation. Is it possible for us to get one?
Yeah, we can sure email it out to all the trustees.
Yeah, it was an excellent presentation.
Great.
And
thanks. Christy, I would like to mention, Christy put together a slideshow and did an excellent job.
Mike, you did do a very good job. Christy, excellent.
And Trustee Gimber?
I just wanted to piggyback off of what Trustee Hodges said by saying thank you for everything you've done for the transportation, and Christy for being there for the transition from Phil to Mike to Rick to hopefully nobody else.
Thank you so much. I just had one question before you guys go. Have you recently or in the past surveyed the parents and asked them if it meant that your ride time could be decreased by 10 or 15 minutes, would you prefer to go to, like, say, a meeting place in Orton or your kids to the highway? Or is that not something you've looked at, just out of curiosity, in the last 5 years?
So I have actually been in discussion with some parents. With all these calls that would come in, I had discussions with them, and it was one of my questions to one of them one came to me with some very well thought out concerns. And so I took that opportunity with that particular parent and I asked some questions, and honestly been working on a survey that could maybe go out to the parents. I talked to Jeff about it here just a couple short weeks ago, and we decided we would wait till after this board meeting to even discuss it further. So.
Okay, thanks so much. If there's no further questions, again, on behalf of the whole board, we appreciate you, Mike, and I know you've been a huge asset in the division and the different places you've served, and we really appreciate you and wish you the best. We'll miss you, but we understand being close to home, and we wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to the continued success in our transportation division. So thank you guys so much for coming today. We appreciate that. Okay, thank you guys so much. That was a wonderful way to finish up our board meeting with some fantastic presentations here today. We're going to go ahead and move on to G, our key messages. we have 3 key messages that we have room for here. Just 3. So we'll go ahead, open up the floor to anyone who has something they'd like to add. Trustee Long? I felt it.
Oh, that was a good afternoon of presentations. So as we were working, I listed 5, but I know we don't want to do that. I'll just put out 3 and feel free to change them. IMR results. I've always done that at school council. Alberta Ed Assurance Survey results. And boy, that was a great presentation on the bus times and numbers. And I know school council and Ward 2 would like to hear it. Do you want to hear my other 2?
Thank you, Trustee Long. We'll hold off on your other 2 for the moment. Let's see if anyone else has any. Maybe they'll hit on yours. So thank you. The IMR, Alberta Ed Report, and then the busing. Is there anyone else who has any other key points that they'd really like to have for the key messages? Trustee Hodges?
Well, I think we're going to get questions around the motion that we passed today having to do with directing administration to come back with some protocols. So I think we need to highlight that as part of our key messages and be able to have that conversation.
No, does everyone feel comfortable adding a 4th one in? I feel like it's important to, when we have this discussion, and I'm sure we'll get questions about it, to, you know, make sure that everyone understands we're directing admin to bring us back a recommendation of what this could possibly look like. So we'll add that one in for the 4th one for sure. There's been a lot of conversation around that. Yes, Mr. Seguin?
Can I just make a suggestion to consider?
Yep.
Yeah, we had some great presentations this afternoon, and all of them are very important. I mean, student mental health at this time as well. Maybe it's a thought to consider presentations and have Nikki just put a brief, you know, message, just a couple sentences about each of the presentations, and then you can take that further in your local school council meetings if you like.
Mr. Seguin, is it appropriate for us, would it be appropriate for us to, as this is a public meeting, share that transportation report with school councils?
I think the transportation one, certainly.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, just for clarity. So
we'll just want to make sure, of course, anything that they might have in speaking notes or whatever is
Absolutely.
vetted, but just the actual slides for
the
sure.
actual slides would be, okay. So we'll make sure that when that gets sent out to you, that there is a copy that is shareable of just the slides. Thank you for that, Mr. Seguin. I agree that highlighting all our presentations would be excellent. Trustee Gimber, did you have your hand up? Nope. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to add then to our 3 key messages? And by that I mean 4. We've got 4. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much. So with that, I will ask if I can have a motion to go in camera at 3:59, and just to make a note on the minutes that we're 1 minute ahead of schedule. So, Greg, that was motioned by Greg, Trustee Long. Trustee Gregory Long. Thank you. Okay, thank you.